All right, well, the NFL players have spoken about the Seahawks. 6 of them have made I guess we're down to the top 20 or so. There's 20 more players to go. We're pretty confident there aren't going to be any more Seahawks in there. And I guess you'd say that this is the NFL players talking about who they think the best players are.
Right.
And they have anointed Marshawn Lynch.
Yeah, he came in at 24.
As the best of all the Seahawks. And some of us beg to differ a little bit, with no disrespect to Marshawn Lynch.
Yeah, we all love Marshawn Lynch. Think he's obviously a huge piece of what they do offensively. He's been remarkably productive over the past few years. But by putting him at 24, and you've got Richard Sherman at 50, and Russell Wilson at 51, and you've got Max Unger and Earl Thomas, everybody, and Percy Harvin back down the list, I think we can all agree, or at least it seemed like most people agree, that Richard Sherman, in my estimation anyway, you can speak for yourself on this, I think he's the best player on this team, if you're just going best player, period. Now, Russell Wilson may eclipse him eventually. Everybody expects that. But in my estimation, Richard Sherman is the best player on this team. The fact that he's number 50 maybe speaks to some of the ill will directed at him by other players who are voting in this. But
sure.
I just don't think Marshawn is better than Richard Sherman.
Well, I think part of it, too, is, depending on the NFL teams, there are teams that have not seen Richard Sherman play, and he's not played against them. And this is kind of like having the coaches do a poll in college football. You pay attention to the guys you play, and that's it. You're not looking at film of anyone else. Now, you'll see stories, guys that live in a vacuum and stuff like that, and the negative stuff is out there, too. But I think the reason why Lynch was probably put up there by players is just longevity. The other guys we're talking about with the Seahawks, first, second, in a couple cases, third-year guys, are really just kind of getting started, whereas Lynch, 2,000-yard seasons, 1,000-yard-plus seasons his first 2 years in the league, and more significantly, the last 2 years averaging something like 1,400 yards, 11, 12 touchdowns a year, I think has built up a little more of a reputation for everything. But, and this year it's going to be emphasized, I think. All eyes are going to be on Richard Sherman in particular. He was one of the stars of minicamp. You're talking about a guy whose motor hadn't slowed even a little bit. Motivation hasn't dropped even a tiny bit. He still seems to me, Bob, to be the same driven guy he was when we first met him, which feels like it was like maybe week 3, about two years ago, when he replaced Walter Thurman in the lineup. Plays with a chip on his shoulder, and it's still firmly in place.
Oh, it's still there. Whether it comes from Skip Bayless, whether it comes from not being part of the Pro Bowl, it's there, and he's a guy who still feels like he's got something to prove. And to his credit, he is creating a standard to live up to because of all the talk, because of everything he's had to say about him versus Revis and his numbers, and he's kind of put that pressure on himself, and he seems to be a guy that embraces it. But just back to the original point, it's all opinion, it's players' opinion, and,
right.
And some of that may be tainted with some personal objection to who Richard Sherman is. But for me, there's no question who the best Seahawk is right now. Again, eventually you expect it to be Russell Wilson, but we talked about Russell Wilson really hitting his stride that second half of the Bears game on, and you're already past the midway point of the season.
Right.
People forget we talked week in, week out. Boy, is he going to throw for 200 yards this week? What do you think? What's the over-under? 190, 180? And that was due in large part to the way they were calling the game. But Richard Sherman's done this for a couple years. Russell Wilson had less than half a year.
And he's got a new number to motivate him, 50. Doesn't like it.